Hello and welcome to the ReGen podcast. I'm ReGen and I am here with Old School Purist, who is in fact my dad in real life. Would you like to briefly introduce yourself and just tell me why you've chosen the name Old School Purist?
I am indeed ReGen's dad, but I am Old School Purist. I am a long follower of all sorts of motor racing, and funnily enough, I'm here talking about Formula E, which some people might say isn't so old school purist, but that will be interesting.
So you're more just a casual fan, really. You're fairly new to this Formula E stuff. You're a bit of a purist, so, you know, certain aspects like this fan boost and attack mode, you're maybe not quite sure how you feel about that yet.
Exactly, yes. You see, I appreciate Formula E, as I do all racing series. Racing's racing to me, and Formula E is great. The technology inspires me, and I love the racing itself. That's what at Formula E seems to stick out a lot, the racing. Yes, there's elements about it the old school man, like myself, doesn't appreciate, but that's another subject. But Formula E's got a lot of potential, and at the end of the day, it's really good, interesting watching.
I think that's something we can have a deeper discussion into maybe at some time in a future podcast, because there are some aspects where I agree with you. I don't like the fan boost. I think we need to get rid of that. But yes, for the moment, we will focus on the topic of today, which is the Berlin E-Prix, specifically the first 4 races. As we record this now, we have it's just about an hour since the 4th race at Berlin, the second race on the layout the normal way round, as opposed to the reverse layout one, in which Antonio Felix Da Costa won the championship. So that's the major topic of discussion. First of all, Antonio Felix Da Costa, Formula E champion of season 6. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, race number 9. Yes, and Da Costa winning it with, I believe, is it 2 races still left?
2 races to go, which is, I'm fairly sure, I'll double check this, but that is the biggest kind of margin. Like in season 4, Jean-Eric Vergne won the championship with 1 race still to go, if I remember correctly, but this is the earliest that anyone has won the championship in Formula E. So quite remarkable what Da Costa has done.
Well, absolutely. And where did he come from? I mean, Da Costa, her first half of the season, hopes and looks, he's up there. But then suddenly, Marrakesh, he won Marrakesh. So I think he won the last race before.
Yeah, he won Marrakesh. That was the last race before, and that put him into the lead of the championship. But at that stage of the season, loads of different people had been winning. And in fact, when Da Costa won that race, he was the 9th consecutive different winner to have won a race.
And this is what you thought, that, okay, there's another winner. But then suddenly they come into Berlin, and it's like, suddenly he's doing it all the time. It's like, where did he come from with that? Did not predict. I don't think anyone foresaw that he was going to keep winning.
Yeah, we thought, this is Formula E, different people are going to keep winning. But then Da Costa came into Berlin and just bang on pole position, win. Bang on pole position again, win. And even when he's not been winning, he's been right up there. He was leading today, finished second to Jean-Eric Vergne. He's just been, whereas a lot of people have been very inconsistent, all the other main championship contenders, you look at their closest non-Techeetah highest driver in the championship, Maximilian Gunther, he's had 2 wins, but then, in today's race, he was qualified down at the back and had a smash on the first lap and he was out, and that's typical of how most of the drivers in the championship, their seasons have gone. They've not been consistent, but Da Costa has had those 3 wins in a row, 3 pole positions in a row, then 4th place, second on the podium again today. It's crazy consistency.
Yes, through my casual observation of Formula E, I haven't followed it that closely.
Yeah, he's just a casual observer.
Various seasons, but to see someone consistently and with, 1 race to the next doing it like that, I don't know, the closest I would have thought would have been Vergne, where I observed someone constantly being up there and constantly doing things.
Indeed. Well, Sebastian Buemi had a very strong run at the beginning of season 3. That was like way back in 2016, when he won 5 of the first 6 races. And Formula E's always been really competitive, but obviously back then the rules were quite different. But now you have this system in qualifying, which you fans of Formula E who follow this channel will know about, where basically the guys at the top of the championship have to go out first in the group qualifying, which means they're on a dirty track. So normally they're down towards the back of the grid. And because of that, and just the nature of Formula E, it's very hard to be consistent. Generally, especially over the last 2 seasons, people have really struggled to be consistent. It's kind of been like, you win one race and then you're down at the back of the grid the next race. And what Da Costa's doing, it's it's the kind of stuff we're used to seeing in Formula One or in other series, but it's very rare and unique in Formula E these days. It's very special. I don't know how he's doing it.
Because Formula E qualifying, and certainly to me, and I guess other just casual observers, in the past it's been a bit confusing on how it works, because they've tried out different sort of orders and formats, I believe. And it is, you've got different groups going out, and then they've got the Super Bowl, and like, who gets the Super Bowl? How does that all work? But it's like what Da Costa has shown is that being the best, you can go through all of a complicated qualifying procedure and still get yourself right up there.
Things are very mixed up in Formula E.
And to consistently qualify, I do believe that if a driver can consistently qualify on top through the system, it is an achievement.
And the fact it is like that really underlines how talented Da Costa is and just how incredible it is what he's doing, because drivers keep on struggling to get out of Group 1 and get into the top 6 to make it into Super Pole. And Jean-Eric Vergne, Da Costa's teammate, of course, famously complains many times about how, it's not fair, I can't do anything because I'm punished for leading the championship, which means I'm at the back of the grid.
Yeah, Da Costa was doing it.
But Da Costa apparently didn't get the memo on that. He didn't listen. He just went out and got through into Super Pole and banged it on pole anyway, and then he did it again, despite leading the championship. So
I have a feeling, we come to Berlin, Vergne was particularly miserable, and I have a feeling there's a little bit of him being conscious that he was being shown up by Da Costa, actually.
Yeah, well, this is something I kind of wanted to get onto, actually, because Da Costa, of course, has been doing amazing, and of course it's very easy to just point to the car, the DS Techeetah, and say, well, DS Techeetah, they've clearly got something, they've got a massive advantage, which clearly they do have an advantage, and Jean-Eric Vergne won the race today, of course. But it's worth considering that Vergne took a while to really get it together. He hasn't been consistent like Da Costa does. The first 2 races on the reverse layout of Berlin, it all fell apart and he was nowhere.
Indeed, yeah.
And Da Costa was banging it on pole and winning the race, and Vergne wasn't there. And Jean-Eric Vergne, what really makes this highlights Da Costa and how good this is from Da Costa is that Vergne isn't just a nobody in the championship.
No,
he's a double champion. He is, in many people's view, probably, I think you've even said so yourself and stuff, the greatest driver.
Yeah, he is a man that generally you're used to dominating, and from wherever he starts, goes through and ends up at the front. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Da Costa has kind of, his new blood that seems to have shown him up in this team.
Definitely.
Da
Costa's come into that team, and that was really very much Jean-Eric Vergne's team. It was built around Jean-Eric Vergne. He's been there since, Seika took it over, and it became Techeetah then, before DS came on board at the start of Season 3. He's been there from the beginning. That team was built from the ground up around Jean-Eric Vergne, and Da Costa's come in and made it his own, and now I don't think Vergne's too happy about it. But that's really impressive.
It is, where did Da Costa come from to start doing this? I mean, winning the last race before the lockdown, okay, another winner, the latest winner. But then to come back and still be that man who's now winning them and is going to keep winning them, like,
as we said,
where does that come from?
A lot of people thought, and I kind of thought, it would carry on the way it had gone before the break. There's different people winning, it's going to be Max Gunther one week, and then Mitch Evans, and then we'll get on to Evans in a moment, and then Da Costa wins, and then maybe someone else like Buemi wins, and it'd be a different winner again each week. But yeah, Da Costa's just gone in and dominated in a way that we really thought wasn't possible in Formula E. That's arguably never been seen before.
Yeah, well, and I guess I would say not just the Techeetah car.
And Techeetah really, really good. Yeah,
It's like, what has happened during lockdown? What have Techeetah? I mean, okay, I don't even know what they're allowed to do or not do during the non-racing period.
Yeah.
But somehow Techeetah have come out with a very top-running, consistent car, which, okay, probably was sort of up there during the first half of the season, but not so consistently and so dominantly up there.
Yeah, it's really impressive what they've done for one team to get a big advantage like that, and it's really hard to do that in Formula E.
Yeah, it's like we thought the lockdown was going to be a pause. It's like a freeze frame and a pause, and then when we carry on, but it's as though something has happened in that lockdown period where teams have done something and Techeetah have done something.
And before the lockdown period, it did seem to be coming together because they were racing up towards the front. Da Costa got 2 second places in Santiago and then in Mexico, and then he wins in Marrakesh, and Verne almost gets second place. He's just beaten by Gunther on the final lap, and DS Techeetah seemed to be right up there, and the ball was in their court, and they were just doing it. But then, again, with lockdown, we didn't know whether they'd keep up that momentum or not, and thinking, okay, Techeetah have got it, but then someone else is going to get it, because that's normally the way it goes.
Yes.
They sort of take turns.
Well, that's how I tend to view Formula E as being the way it is. I've always viewed it as a spec series racing, because it is still largely spec. I mean, there's still not a lot of
everything
room.
Except the powertrain.
Yes,
spec.
that's it. So, it's not... The teams, obviously the powertrain is a huge part.
It makes a big difference.
And that's the only room for manoeuvre all the teams have got. But I still look at Formula E as, that's kind of spec. They're not prototype cars, but it is all about the powertrain. But, I just don't know, the difference between before the lockdown and after the lockdown, I would, how does that happen? What's gone on? And like you said, what Techeetah have done, but what other teams seem to have lost during the lockdown.
I think it's something that a lot of people and a lot of the other teams, indeed, are going to be pondering for a long time, and they're going to be analysing all this very closely. But certainly, I think we can agree that Da Costa has done an amazing job, and it's remarkable, and I'm amazed at how he's done, and Techeetah as well.
And he deserves
done really,
it.
really well.
I observed Da Costa when he was doing Formula 3. I saw him win the Formula 3 Macau.
He was a fan of Da Costa back in the day.
I
remember
was,
you used to
definitely.
like Da Costa.
And I believe he was on the Red Bull program as well. And thought we might see him in Formula 1. I never got to know whether he managed to do any kind of test run with them, behind, off-season. I don't think he ever made it to actual Grand Prix Fridays or anything like that. But I don't know if he even got to sit in a Formula 1 car or not. He may have done. But he was on that program to go that way.
Really impressive.
And it didn't happen, so he ended up in Formula E.
And like Da Costa has been saying himself, he's fallen on a lot of hard times. Even in Formula E, he always had the potential there, but he's been stuck with uncompetitive machinery. He was driving for Guri and then for Andretti, and he was in uncompetitive cars and couldn't really show his talent. And now with this Techeetah, he's had a really good car, and he's shown been able to prove to everyone else that he can do it. Proving all the doubters wrong.
Yeah, I didn't know he was in a Guri to start with.
Yeah, he was in a Guri. That's interesting, isn't it? Because they were the team that became Techeetah, effectively.
Oh, of course. Well, right. You see, I don't follow it enough to know that, but there you go. Yeah,
I did a video about it just last week.
All right, I'll have to watch some more ReGen videos then. Yes, the way he came through it, and actually, no, it's what he said on the first weekend, the first races. That was not the weekend, the weekday races just before this weekend, and when he qualified, and got the result he did. He actually came out and said, "It's so good to be in a proper car," and he actually said, "This is the first time I feel like I'm driving a first-rate car now," and it says, "Now I can show what I can do because now I've got it."
And, you know, he says he really appreciates this now because he was quick to point out he's been on the other end. He's been one of the other drivers who's either in an uncompetitive car or for whatever reason, it's just not working. You can't find the pace. You can't be quick. And now he's on the other side and he's the one winning. And that's why, because he's been there on the other side, he really appreciates being in the best car and winning now.
Yes, he does.
Like all the more for it.
Yes, and he doesn't forget it. I think he's got to be congratulated actually on his podium ceremony, but no, actually his post-race interviews he's done with Jack Nicholls and
Vernon Kay.
Vernon Kay, there he is. Right, the interview with Vernon Kay, Jack Nicholls, and I was going to say Stevie Nicks then, right? Edit that
Nicky
again.
Shields.
Nicky Shields.
I might leave that bit in actually because it's funny.
Stevie Nicks. Right.
I'd like to see Stevie Nicks presenting Formula E. That'd be good.
He was very magnanimous about his career and how he thanked everyone that got him to where he was. He actually thanked the Red Bull program. He thanked BMW. And obviously Techeetah, who's winning with. But he said all of those people taught him how it worked, how to get where, you know, put him where he is today. And especially he was really praising of BMW, saying he actually said, they taught me how to be a professional racing driver. And
yeah, he praised BMW, didn't he?
Heavily. And so it was very good. And I don't think, you know, coming to Berlin, I don't think even he thought that this might happen.
No.
At all. And I think he's quite surprised with the results he was getting. And that obviously, I think that added to his emotion of winning the championship.
He's very, very happy and very emotional.
It was a very
we can say that much.
I'm going to say I've watched Formula E endings and champions happening, but actually that strikes me as one of the most emotional receiving
I think you may be right
there.
I think you may be right with that. He's certainly very, very emotional. So moving on from that, we've talked quite a bit about Antonio Felix Da Costa there. Fantastic for him. But from really good fortunes to not so good fortunes, let's move on now to the guy who we expected to be his biggest rival because he was runner-up in the championship going into these Berlin races, Mitch Evans and Jaguar.
Evans. Now,
their fortunes haven't been so good.
See, I'm a Mitch Evans fan. Yeah. I like the guy when he talks. You know, he's New Zealander, isn't he? He's a New.
Yes.
And
I'm a Mitch Evans fan too.
And he just strikes me as a really good down-to-earth racer. And I thought, he's got he can show it on his day. He can show some brilliant stuff. And I thought, yes, give him the chance. He could do it. It's good. But this is it. What happened? What I was saying earlier, what did Techeetah do during the lockdown to have such a dominant car? What did Jaguar do?
And how did it go
during
wrong
the
for
lockdown to make their car so uncompetitive?
Yeah.
It's like, what happened? You had it was pushing up there, front running, and then...
Well, to put into context just how good the Jaguar and Mitch Evans were, at Mexico, he basically dominated. He dominated that race, and I remember Dario Franchitti commentating on it at the time, saying, I don't think we've seen domination like this in Formula E in a long time. He just blitzed that race in Mexico.
Yeah, it didn't take long there till Berlin showed him another level of domination.
Well, that's true indeed. But after Mexico, then we went to Marrakesh, of course, and he should have probably been on pole at Marrakesh, but his team made a mistake by sending him out too late, which means that when he did his lap, it didn't count. So that was a terrible error, which meant he had to start at the back of the grid, but then he came through from the back of the grid and finished sixth.
Well, absolutely, yeah. Because that car, him and that car, and the groove he was in, it was a top car. Well, he was, the combination was top. But what the hell happened during lockdown? How do you turn up and you could visibly see it? I watched that first FE race in Berlin, round 6. It was the back end was swinging around, slip sliding.
He just didn't.
It looked like Evans could not get a groove in with it at all. And you think, what has happened? What have Jaguar done to their car during lockdown?
He just didn't seem very comfortable, did he? And I think that thing about getting into the groove there is the operative word, because when I was listening to what kind of Mitch Evans and James Barkley were saying between the qualifyings and the races, it was always kind of like, it's not that the pace isn't in the car, it's that we just can't find it. We can't get in the sweet spot. It's not consistent. And that kind of explains why it seemed odd in a way how Mitch Evans, you know, he sort of did all right in the first race, but in the second race he qualified way down at the back and then just couldn't get into the points, and he seemed to be nowhere. But in the last couple of races he's come forward a bit more, and he, like, the qualifying earlier today, he was only in the group stages, he was only a tenth of a second off Da Costa.
Yes, it showed a bit more.
And he seemed to be coming back there. But that's it. It's just inconsistency. And it's like sometimes when he's in the groove, as you say, he's showing flashes of the pace that him and Jaguar had before the break, before lockdown, but he can't be there consistently. Sometimes he's quick, but then other times it's sort of up and down. And, you know, that you can't win the championship like that.
No, you can't. But then this whole thing of, you know, sometimes there it's not and it's up and down, that is actually, through the history of Formula E, seems to be the way it is anyway.
Yeah.
A lot of teams sort of have to face that, or drivers face that. Things just don't fit in some days, they do fit other days.
That's kind of what we talked about earlier, and everyone sort of has their ups and downs, but the thing about Evans, it was like, even within a session, he couldn't be consistent. Like, I remember him saying that it was like he would go out sort of in practice, and it was like one lap he'd be happy and finding a sweet spot with the car, and then he'd lose it again.
That's like, it. The change is so drastic.
From what it was, he just could not keep it on the pace or keep it consistent from one lap to the next, was the impression I got.
Yes, and the change from as Jaguar were showing what they've got up to the lockdown to afterwards, it seemed such a drastic change in their performance. You know, again, I wonder what on earth. I don't know what's happened during the lockdown period. You wonder what were teams able or not able to do during the lockdown period, but there just seems to have been changes of something during that lockdown period.
Well, it's been a long time. It's been a long time since
preparations for the Tempelhof area,
and the Tempelhof, and of course the Tempelhof,
which is not like other city street tracks.
We're going to talk about the Tempelhof circuit more in the moment, but it's fair to say the Tempelhof circuit has different characteristics to Mexico or Marrakesh. So, I mean, the unique quirks of the track and the track surface and all and the conditions and everything in itself, that all makes a difference. And it seems that Jaguar, when it is in the sweet spot, it can be dominant and go really, really well. But it seems very dependent on being in that sweet spot, and it's a fine line. And when it's not, they're just nowhere. And
I think the more I think about that now, I realise the fact that the last 6 races, the showdown was all at Tempelhof, and I realise, I'm thinking now that some, you know, different street tracks suit different cars, and they get things together, and somehow sweet spots happen at different tracks. The fact that this was the same track for the finale might mean that if you haven't got it sweet at that place, it's not going to be sweet. You're stuck there for 6 races.
And equally, as we've seen with Techeetah, if you have got it right, it's going to really pay dividends.
Yeah, and it's not just about the different layouts. I think it could literally be the surface, the asphalt, and whatever it is they've got. It's a different
layout, but it's still on the same surface, and it's at the same time of year. And added to that, you've got the fact that, you know, there aren't big gaps between these races for the teams and drivers to go away and think about it. You know, they're here locked in at Tempelhof Airfield, and they've only got 1 or 2 days between each meeting. You know, you can't go away and totally rethink things in that time.
Exactly.
So kind of what you arrive with is what you've got, and Jaguar have really suffered from that. Obviously, Techeetah have really benefited, but Jaguar have come here and they're just not in that sweet spot, and they're going to suffer across all 6 races because of it.
So actually, I might take back all my wonders about what on earth happened during lockdown. Maybe nothing happened during lockdown, and what it was is they turned up a new track, and because in the past every track presents different things for the teams, and certain tracks, this team's good, they've got it. It's the fact that they've turned up this team's got it, that team hasn't. But they're locked there now for 6 races. And maybe that's just it. Maybe it's just simply, it's like a freeze frame, whereas in normal times you'd go onto another track and you might do better.
That's definitely a factor in it. But it's nonetheless, it is odd how Evans seemed to be dominating and doing so well at Mexico and Marrakesh, and then comes here and just hasn't got it. Yeah. It's a big shame for him and a big shame for Jaguar. All he can really hope now is he could... And all we can hope as Mitch Evans fans is he can come back and get second in the championship, because it's a very, very tight.
I'd like to see them to do something in the last 2 races, something like that, because I think Jaguar, big company, big car company.
They are.
They've got a lot to show, and they've got a good lineup for the next season.
Sam Bird, fantastic. He's my favourite driver. So Sam Bird and Evans at Jaguar.
What you want from
fantastic.
them in the next 2 races, as the season ends, is to at least show that they're gearing up, ready with the thing. And I assume it is still going to be the same gen cars, is it? This is where my ignorance comes in. Yeah. I know they're talking about Gen 3 cars.
Yeah, Gen 3 is not far away.
I dare say that's another subject again.
It will be. That can be another podcast. But yes, we're still going to be Gen 2 next season. So so returning back to the track again, talking about the Berlin Tempelhof circuit, because this was another sort of final point I wanted to get into before we wrap up this podcast. What do you think of this arrangement? Obviously, it's a bit of a compromise, because with lockdown, they've really done the best. We've had the best possible outcome. I was worried there weren't going to be any more Formula E races at one point. But what do you think of this arrangement of doing these 6 races at Berlin and using 3 different layouts?
Well, they've got to do something. You can't just have 6 races doing the same thing in a row. I mean, you could, but I mean, that doesn't make for entertainment. So you've got to do something. Yeah. And the fact that it is an airfield, it's basically a huge tarmac apron.
Yeah.
They can rearrange it how the hell they want, and why not?
True.
So it's a perfect choice to do. If you're going to have to do 6 races in a row in any one location, an airfield is the best place.
I think it's the best we could have hoped for, really. But having said that, I'm not sure how well the reverse... I mean, the reverse layout worked. I mean, I think we got 2 good races, but I'm still a bit unsure about doing the circuit in reverse.
Yeah, I think
as a layout.
It sounded a bit... It's perhaps a bit lazy. You set up the track, let's do it that way round instead, rather than the other way round. The thing is, when you design a circuit to be a certain way, a certain route around, generally the people that say, right, we'll do it here, we'll have a straight here, we'll do the corner there, it's designed where they think all right, people can overtake here. That'll be a good spot for people. So it's designed to go a certain way, and then if you go completely the other way, that actually eradicates the design that was in it. So all those designed overtaking places are now lost.
So, I remember you kind of saying this in a conversation we had the other day, actually, that when a circuit layout is designed, it's designed with in mind being run a specific way around, and each corner is designed to create sort of specific overtaking opportunities. So, when you reverse it and turn it the other way around, you kind of eradicate all those places that have been designed with entertaining racing and overtaking opportunities in mind, and it's really just pot luck what you're going to get. Yes, that's it.
You just got to hope that there is, it is. You got to hope that something accidentally pops up that there is going to. There's an overtaking spot that we didn't foresee, because obviously you didn't plan it. Because you didn't plan it, you're just reversing what you did plan.
And that's why what I'm kind of more excited about, actually, is the layout that we're going to be doing
that will be
next
interesting.
time.
I've not seen
the final event of the season.
Obviously, you have, as most Formula E fans will have done. I have not actually looked at.
I'll have to show you the. I'll have to show you the layout afterwards. But basically, it follows the normal layout of the circuit quite closely. But basically, once you get out of where the old E-motion tunnel used to be, and then it's a left, right, and onto the back straight. From that point on, it sort of turns right, and then it's all different. So part of the circuit is the same, and it's being run in the same direction. So we won't have the same problems we had with the reverse layout as far as the overtaking opportunities and things. It's been, because this one has been specifically designed to be run this way round, but there's just a new sequence of corners, and I'm going to find that pretty interesting.
Yes.
And it's a point of interest for the championship. Now the title has been decided.
I think it's a good job now, yes. Some people might give up watching because, okay, it's all done and dusted. What is there to watch? Well, yeah, now there's a new circuit there. That will be interesting to watch.
Yeah. Because I know you're a big... You have a lot of this kind of attitude of, once the championship's decided, what else is there to watch it through? Because you're very big into the title fight and following the title fight.
Yes, I mean, and that kind of goes against the motorsport purism that I claim to have, because motorsport purism shouldn't really be about titles and that. But to the general public, that is how motorsport is marketed. It's all about championships.
Well, that's true. I mean,
titles.
that's what you hear on the news, isn't it? It's Lewis Hamilton's the Formula One world champion and so on. And so, yes, I can see that. And obviously, we've got an incredibly tight battle for runner-up in the championship going on at the moment. And who's in second? It's Jean-Eric Vergne that's in second place.
But it's only Formula E fans that are going to be watching that. The public are not. The public at large now will be going.
That shows how tight it is, because Jean-Eric Vergne was way down in the championship, and then he has then he has 2 podiums, and he's right back up in second place. So that's going to be really tense and exciting. But yes, with Da Costa now having won the title and secured that championship, as far as things to keep watching for, apart from entertaining racing, which Formula E does generally always provide, this new layout of Berlin, I mean, me being the nerdy fan I am, like different layouts of circuits and tweaks and modifications and things, that stuff kind of gets me excited anyway. Yeah. So, I'm going to be quite curious just to see the cars going round. I'll probably be watching practice, just seeing, these are the new corners and seeing how it all looks. And I'm curious to see how the drivers will deal with that in the race. Well, indeed.
That's what I do in other motorsports. It's like when other motorsport series go to a track they haven't done before, it's like, yes, you watch every single practice and everything because you just want to get the grip,
new circuit,
see this layout, see how the cars and drivers take it.
It's really interesting. I remember doing that. I remember doing that back in 2010 in Formula One when Bahrain, when they did the funny extended, what do they call it, the endurance layout, when they added the extra loop to it, and I was like, I want to see this, and it wasn't very exciting.
No,
but
it wasn't. That was terrible.
A new layout of a track is just interesting.
It is indeed, yeah.
So I'm going to be watching it, and I hope all of you watching this podcast will watch the final 2 races of the season and enjoy them, and I'm sure they'll be pretty entertaining races.
I shall watch them.
Any bets as to who will be runner-up in the championship?
Well, there you go. Now, that's a difficult one. I'm going to say Vergne, actually.
There's a short list of about 20 drivers who
I'm actually going to say Vergne. I think the power and the dominance, whatever it is Techeetah have got, I think it will all be behind Vergne. I think even Da Costa now, he will play the man to help Vergne.
Yeah. In a sense, he already kind of is.
And that's what they want. They want a 1-2.
Yeah, in a sense, he already kind of is, because he finished second to Vergne in that last race, and Vergne's won that race.
Yeah, you're right, actually. Yes, of course. It's already happening. So that gameplay...
I can see that, and that coupled with the advantage that DS Techeetah clearly have, they've got the best car out there at the moment. I think that's not controversial to say.
I had actually forgotten that. Da Costa didn't win that race to win the championship. Vergne won it.
Yeah, Vergne won it.
And... and that's the gameplay already happening.
Yeah.
They are already setting that up. The Cheetah want a 1-2 championship finish. Yeah.
It is, and that's never happened in Formula E history before, incidentally.
That'll make it even more.
Of course, Techeetah have already secured the team's championship. along with the Drivers' Championship. They're really in such good form at Techeetah.
And they just want a 1-2 drivers now.
Yeah, and the fact that they're going so strong and they have this advantage and they've got the best car means that Jean-Eric Vergne is logically, I think, the most obvious choice for who will be runner-up in the championship. But that said, you just never know, because you saw what happened with Jean-Eric Vergne with the 2 races we had on the reverse layout. Who knows? He might have another bad day again, and then suddenly everything's flipped on its head, because that's normally what happens in Formula E.
This is true. There's not a lot that Da Costa can do to help Vergne if he qualifies down in 10th or 14th.
Yeah, or if he just goes, if he has a problem and goes backwards in the races, and that can happen. So, yes, I mean, nothing is set in stone, but Vergne is the logical choice. Obviously, I'd quite like to see a Mitch Evans or a Sam Bird get up there. Yes. I believe Sam Bird is still in mathematical contention, because I think the majority of the drivers are.
Bird, always, on the whole, not all the time, but he does generally do a punchy drive and gets himself up there.
He can do a punchy drive.
But it doesn't always happen, but more often than not, I would say, his name, I see it up there, and I quite, like seeing his name up there. So, yeah, Bird and Evans. Yeah, Bird
so,
and
yes,
Evans.
New circuit layout. Who's going to be runner-up in the championship? Will it be Vergne or Bird or Evans or someone else? That's all great points of interest, and I'm very excited to see that. So I think that's all the main talking points for the podcast we've covered here. Is there anything else you wanted to add?
I don't think so, except to say to just hear it for Da Costa again, just to say, well done. And he accepted it so modestly, humbly, and it was really nice to see his family and friends over the video thing, and you could tell the guy was really, really grateful about it all. And that's, I don't know, I love that in any sport.
And when someone's doing, being so dominant and then being kind of, I suppose, so gracious, almost modest about it afterwards. That's always really great to see how much he appreciates this.
Exactly. And when the season started, no one would have predicted Da Costa's going to be the champion. That, I think he really did come out of, not out of nowhere.
Someone might have predicted.
He didn't come out of nowhere, but he came out of,
I think it's
cynicism against him. He came out of doubt.
Well, there was a lot of
self-doubt.
There was a lot of questions about how good is he really. We know he's been in some woeful cars, and we know he's talented, but how talented is he really? And there was a lot of that, and he certainly proved all the doubters wrong. And as well, I think it's safe to say that no one would have predicted the level of dominance he's had. The 3 wins in a row, all the pole positions.
That was completely unpredictable and surprising.
I don't think anyone saw that coming.
Even if it wasn't Da Costa, anyone doing it like that in Formula E is pretty. That's got to be to a degree unprecedented, is that sort of thing. But yes, and the way he did it and accepted it, a magnanimous champion, and really nice to see. Really
absolutely good. Brilliant. I enjoyed it, and it was great to see his emotion afterwards.
Yeah, and another champion. Not Vergne, not De Grassi, not
absolutely fantastic.
Another name to put on the championship.
I always like to see a new champion in any series. So I think that about wraps it up for this podcast. We've had a good discussion there. We've got 2 races to look forward to. Coming later this week by the time this podcast gets uploaded, and then we may do another podcast discussion after that, so we'll look forward to seeing you there. And in the meantime, you've been watching ReGen, the ReGen podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more anecdotes and analysis from Formula E and motorsport.